The first few days we didn't really have any doctors at the takeoff. So when Violeta on first day crashed, it was the French team doctor and the German team doctor that took care of her.
There are people with multiple roles of extreme influence and power.
The problem is when you try to go against them, you are going against the decision that they've taken, and they themselves are the jury to judge whether you're right or not.
At Castello 2 years earlier, there was another fatality. We had a task where we were basically waiting for the start above the pilot. Then we'd fly across the valley to the north, and then we'd come directly back over where the body was. And
have we desensitized ourselves to something as gory and grave as death, that there is a human pilot lying lifelessly for more than 12 hours, and we are going out and looking for the core and wanting to push full bar and still chase glory? Are you kidding me? That's a shame of a century, my man. What the
They voted that if you rant against them on social media, you can be disqualified for unsportive behavior.
we've seen it with Marcella. You speak up and you get absolutely destroyed.
Hello and welcome back to Paragliding Atlas podcast. I'm your host Aninder Singh, and joining me today are two of the most experienced pilots straight from the Gaggle of World Cup racing. Tilen and Stan, very warm welcome to you guys. How's it going?
Thank you very much. Really good.
Guys, a lot has been said and done the past couple of weeks on public portals in various streams of paragliding. More or less, broadly, the talk is about how to make it more accessible and fun. The first question that comes to my mind is that what are the views from the core group? First thoughts that are going on in your heads considering about what's going on.
Yeah, I think we are clearly lacking a development of sport. Basically, what I've experienced in the last couple of years is just we're continuing to do basically, to maintain status quo at the competition scene, and it's all the mistakes and all the bad things have been accumulating for a while now. And now we're at the moment where things has escalated due to basically things adding up. So that's kind of my main point of view here. We need a certain development of the sport in the right direction. At the moment, I just don't see it.
Fair enough. Stan, I believe you have been in the competition scene as well for a while. But how do you look at it from a decade or more worth of experience? I think you've been racing for way longer than that.
Yeah, I've been probably racing for 15 years. I think the main problem is that nothing's actually changing. For the last probably 5 or 6 years, any types of rules that have been implemented or changed, it's just like a teeny tiny tweak to some random rule that isn't enforced anyway, because they'll have 3-hour conversations about cloud flying, but nothing's ever actually done about it when someone does it. So I think the main reason that people are frustrated is that we're still having the major problems and everyone's focusing on the teeny tiny details of things that are a non-issue anyway.
Fair enough, guys. Makes me wonder, and I'm pretty sure everybody in the audience can relate to this as well. We have a fair bit of professionalism in the sport. There is enough amounts of monetary gain, which is keeping the manufacturers interested. The field, even though it's a niche one, is broad and wide. Are we messing up somewhere in the hierarchy where we are having power or, let's say, responsibility through channels which is kind of steamrolling the whole thing and bringing it to a grinding halt when it comes to making the actual change rather than just talking about it in plenaries and discussion forums?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a clear disconnect between the organizations that run the sport, such as CIVL, and basically the pilots. Even though they will claim themselves they are, from pilots for pilots kind of thingy, but it's when you go to enough of these events, you clearly see they are living on a different planet, if I can say that. They're not handling a stance. They're not really looking at the sport and identifying or even understanding the main issues that we have. When there's an upset, they always just go and fix some random thing that's kind of easy-ish, even though it has no influence. So the main problem still is there, and it all comes down that basically the group, the CIVL, is somehow closed, and it's a closed circle which also organize and run these events. So the politics themselves, are also part of the technical, let's say, part. So organizing, renting, yada yada, and I guess they just like this status quo. They can just keep the wheel turning, as long as they get 100 and something pilots show up to the races. They're all happy. There's no problem. Yeah, then occasionally we have a fatality or two. Then they try to be silent. Then they kind of hide under the table. And if people don't react, it goes away. If they react like they did now with the CIVL resign movement and the whole thing exploding, then they try to come up with some, cosmetic solutions, but they never really look in the mirror. Yeah, they never really look in the mirror. They never really even ask for feedback from us, which is crazy. So I heard from, I was at the World Championship where we had Bram from Belgium unfortunately died during an accident that was quite controversial, let's say. And after that, I heard through different channels, I will get a survey for feedback and so on. We didn't receive anything, and it's been a month already. So this kind of, there's some talk, there's no action, and that's kind of the main issue.
Thank you for being so blunt about it, Tilen. We need more people to present the facts as they are rather than distorting them. When you were speaking these answers to this question, I was very tempted to bring in a lighter moment and saying that who doesn't like the status quo? We all love the attention and the fame that comes with it. So I don't deny. I don't denounce the one higher ups to have this human behavior in this. But before I dwell further on this part, I'm pretty sure a lot of audience members are curious, because I was also at one point. Would you be comfortable sharing the shareable details of the accident at Worlds? Because even right now, there is a certain bit of information, but it's just that this happened. In the public domain, if you have to go into the details of it and the whole thing that happened, then it's like it's hidden in the comments or in the DMs of very selected few pilots. So yeah. I just want to put it out in the public portal. What happened in Brazil that has made this whole thing go around?
Okay, so I can give my point of view. I'll try to be short, because the story is not just the event, the accident itself, but it starts a few months prior to the competition. So we were supposed to have the competition in Andradas. We ended up in Castelo. We will never really, get the truth about why it was changed. There are only rumors and speculations. But the fact is, 5 months before the event, the venue changed. And Castelo in September is known to have quite a lot of sea breeze, strong winds on the ground.
That's like a known fact. Even the organizers, it's there.
And this was basically communicated to us from the Brazilian fellow pilots. They were protesting this decision. They were saying we all know it's going to be tricky, it's going to be dangerous. Then we went there. Nevertheless, we did experience basically, like, the first few days maybe not, but then later on we did get to see that the sea breeze is quite serious. It's quite strong, and especially the low level. higher up, there's no sea breeze. Lower down, there's quite a lot. And then we come to the task where we had the accident. So basically, due to the forecast that was strong northwest wind, I think, and the fact that around Castello you have quite mountainous region, right? So the landings are not, I mean, there are plenty, but it's not flat, right? Let's say that. Let's put it that way. So we kind of, I think from the pilots and so on, we kind of requested if we can fly more with the wind and also land somewhere down there, like. And then in the evening, there was a new turn point for a goal that they set up. And actually, it was not really checked. Just the next morning, somebody went there and checked that it's actually landable.
You mean one of the pilots or the organizers?
No, the organizers. No, they sent someone in the morning there to check, okay, it's a big enough field.
Is this standard practice according to your decades worth of experience, Stan? No. Do people only check it in the morning, or is it very...
No. Look, there's been occasions where, for example, you'll have a situation where a landowner gets annoyed at the organization because they didn't want to give them their €500 or whatever. And they'll say, okay, you're not allowed to use the official landing. And in those situations, okay, they might put a new landing somewhere different. But normally, it's an official landing that's been checked, that's been used prior, especially for an event like the Worlds. You have to have it idiot-proof. It has to be proven. It has to be checked over, at least 2-3 different events that everything's safe.
Considering that it's a top-level comp.
Yeah, look, at the higher level, you're going to expect that people are going to be coming into goal relatively low. Like, everyone wants to get there first. So it's not going to be that 150 pilots are arriving at 3,000 meters. And just the terrain, like I wasn't there this year because I already said 2 years ago to my wife that I won't go to Brazil for another comp. Definitely not Castello. I don't think the safety's up to par there. And like Tilen was saying, the area where they were setting up the goals, I was looking at the live tracking and I was scratching my head, like, what the hell are they doing? Because pretty much every task, they were flying towards the sea breeze into a place where there's undulating hills. You've got hills with wires running from top to top of a hill across the valley that you can't see from the air. And with the sea breeze that's coming in, it's quite a strong place. And because of the undulation of the terrain, it just gets super rough at times. And I think that's some of the comments that we saw from the pilots confirm that.
Fair enough, Stan. I'm sorry to break your thought process in there, Tilen. Yep. My idea was to just try and connect the dots. So let's say change of venue 5 months ago, the protests ignored after that, the turn point, which was checked only 24 hours prior or less than that. And then, as Stan mentioned, task setting. So there are 3 clear-cut, because as we usually speak in aviation or in paragliding as well, that it's not one single mistake that leads to a catastrophe. It is a series of combination of errors. So I think we have organized 3 or 4 important points, but please continue. You were talking about the turn point being checked.
So then the task was set, and during the task, and this, as I mentioned before, the problem with the sea breeze is, or the wind there in general, was that it was always just on the low level. So when we were flying the task, all was fine. The day was kind of good, no issues there. And then we came to the goal relatively high, and I think pretty much everyone, including Bram, we arrived higher or relatively high. Now, to be honest, and to be also, I need to point out that the way they made goal, it was not a line, it was a cylinder. It basically, where the goal was, there was an open space, basically a small, not really valley, because the hills there are like up to 50 meters maybe. So and it was grass everywhere, even on the top of the hills. So if you if you wish to, you could land on top of a hill or just somewhere and still be in goal. So it was not a problem of like really reaching the line. Now, what was the problem is that basically the goal field was behind a hill. So it was in a lee side from the wind, and the road was next to the hill. So when we come to the goal, you want to land as close as possible to the buses, to the retrieve, so you don't need to walk through the whole
It's a
field.
human psyche. Yeah.
It's kind of, you do it out of convenience. You try to land as close as possible. And when I came to the goal, I was a few hundred meters above, and I wanted to assess the wind, so I kind of went into the wind, released everything, and I was seeing that I was standing still. So we had kind of gusts, I guess to 40 kilometers an hour or 30. So serious wind, pretty much. So I went to land in that field behind the hill, but a few hundred, like maybe 100, 200 meters away from it. It was okay. It was not sketchy, but you could see, it was not easy. You definitely 100% focus was needed. And then what happened with Brem is, unfortunately, he made the goal. He had basically the chance to land on the hill or in the valley in front of it, like upwind. So, to be clear, he could have made that decision. He did not. He went over the hill relatively low towards basically where all the other pilots were landing, and then had a collapse. And basically because it was so low, and the way the impact, the ground was really with the front of his body, so that had just serious consequences. So when I analyzed what happened, because we were all shocked, we saw it basically from you could see him and you could see the impact, and we all knew that it's really serious. So my analysis of that was like, yeah, he could have landed on the other side, but in his position, I would do the same. I would go there for convenience to land as close as possible to the others. So it's a very, that's why I think that's why it's important to put it in context. Every accident can be put down to the human error. At the end, you're responsible for everything you do in the air. But kind of all the sequence of events and all the circumstances around it do have a huge influence of what you decide. And this was, again, it was not during racing, it was after we were in goal already. But the fact that, even after then this incident, we requested, in the gold field, they put tents, like for shade, for us to pack the gliders, for have some beverages, some food. So we requested, okay, guys, always put these tents in a place where it's safe to land. Don't put it in the rotor, in the lee side, put it maybe on the other side, even though the buses might be somewhere else. Just as a signal for pilots, when you come high, you don't know really the conditions on the ground, we would always aim for these tents. So this was something that was only considered after, right? Which is, I mean, this should have come from experience. And okay, the organizers in Castello had, organized a few events prior to this World Championships, like even World Cup, but never in October. It was always in March, where the conditions are very different.
And even in March, you get the days where the sea breeze comes in, where it's not as reliably coming to the task area, and on those days it's terror sometimes. So
fair enough, guys. Thank you for the elaboration on this one. I just want to follow it up for the convenience of our listeners. It all started with the change of venue 5 months ago. The task setting was questionable as the event got closer, considering the wind directions. The goal location itself was not the most convenient one, as per the pilots who were making it and analyzing the whole track logs. turn point, as you mentioned, was basically left to last minute. And then the post-incident behavior, I think that is which got the ball rolling. We do tend to accept a certain bit of risk, which we call in the acceptable category. But when something has gone downhill, and if the actions or the way things work are still not up to the mark, that is kind of sad. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not saying the organizers are wrong. I'm not saying the competitors are being harsh or were being ignorant in the first place. All I'm saying is that there has been a trickle-down effect of accumulated flaws. So maybe this is a good point, good intersection where I would like to get the audience members have their opinion down in the comments on whichever streaming platform you listen to. So far, this is the side of story of the racing pilots. I have reached out to the organizers. I have tried and make contact with the plenary, and I'm waiting to hear their part. But whatever information has come to you guys so far, do you see any real sorts of improvements that could have prevented another fatality, which we are calling just another fatality? Because we have been calling these fatalities are life-changing for some on this planet. But for us as a community, it's like just another fatality. And we kind of keep on moving from one to the other until we lose someone super close, or God forbid, if we happen to be in that seat, then of course, we don't know what's the course of action. So just let me know your point of view. I just want to know how the community is thinking in broader numbers in here. But anyways, Tana, I'll get back to you on this one again. But once the carnage was over, once the pilots decided to go back to racing again, the organizers said we are doing everything we can, because I believe Bram is his name is Bram.
Yeah. Yes.
I hope you rest in peace, Bram. But all I'm saying is, once he was put in induced coma and unfortunately could not make it, can you please tell us the course of action then? Because I think that is when the whole talk started happening and it decided to go public.
So this happened after the race, when we went home already. Things have started prior to that. It was just basically not public. It was more in the background. Actually, right after that incident, the Julian Garcia, the French team leader, was already pushing or basically requesting better handling of the competition there on the spot. There was, I know from sources, there was, so every category 1 event has FAE stewards, which they're supposed to be there to help and just be advisory to the local organizer. And then you have a FAE jury, which is there to basically look over the operation, and if something needs to be stopped or changed, or like he can intervene only when it's kind of gets really extreme. So what happened is the first few days we didn't really have any doctors at the takeoff. So when Violeta on first day crashed, it was the French team doctor and the German team doctor that took care of her.
I have a question. Isn't it by rule, by regulations, that an ambulance and a doctor should be available at an event of such a level?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure. Usually, I think Stan would know more with organizing this.
Well, I think at a category 1, it's in the rules that it's at landing and takeoff with a rescue team that's meant to be at takeoff. But yeah, like it's the quality that the local rescue and medical teams is it's questionable. My brother was in Brazil. He broke his arm 2 years ago. the ambulance came and he had to stabilize his own hand because the doctor didn't know how to do it.
Wow, the doctor doesn't know how to stabilize a hand.
So I think what's presented at takeoff, I don't know the quality that's there, and for the last several years, every one of the major competitions, the French doctors have had to do something.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if FI or CIVL or PwC pays the French doctors anything, but they should, because they're picking up the slack.
And here was a similar case. We had rescue on takeoff. I think like first responders. And from, again, I'm not a doctor, I don't know about this, but what I've heard is, the level of knowledge there was not sufficient. Especially for Violeta's open. Basically, she crashed and hit her ankle, and it had a severe cut and open wound and so on. So basically, the French doctor took care of that. Now, to going back, so basically the FAE jury, after a few days, had put an ultimate to the organizers: is either you bring real doctors to takeoff or we stop the whole competition. And then all of a sudden, next day, we did have two of them. Before it was kind of impossible, and then we had. So I'm saying things have been, it's not this like nothing was happening in between. Also, the way basically all the discussions started within the pilots first. Also, basically, we had more and more pilots deciding just, I won't take, like, I'm not comfortable anymore flying here. So they just didn't take off. If there was wing forecasted, they would just say, I'm out. Which is, I mean, this is a world championships. You plan. This is like a event that we all like kind of try to do our best and so on, and it pushes you into a corner to say basically, you know what, I tap out. Like this is too much. And then basically when it went viral is Bram has passed away. And we got to know this from basically Belgium pilots that were still in the chat. And there was no response, no nothing from FII. And then pilots start to get vocal. They were then basically went to social media and mentioned, and kind of in respect of him, to say, look, this happened, we lost him. CIVL doesn't, want to acknowledge it even. And this was in the same time as Julian was planning the whole basically
Movement.
pushback. Yeah, the movement, because he's been in this sport as a team leader for many years, always pushing. This was always conflict between them and CIVL, because he was trying to, change a few things, and it was always kind of denied. And now it came to the point where he sees the only way forward is for them to resign and to restructure the whole association, or commission.
I think I do tend to agree with the frustration, especially when you see losses of human life right in front of you. And this is not a war-like situation. This is not a particularly hostile environment that we are, signing up for. We of course know there are like, things that can happen when you go into aviation in general. However, as you said, there's a lot of things that can be mitigated with a certain SOPs. And if we pull up the slack somewhere else. But Stan, this is where I want to get your point. Your decades worth of experience. Were you there around the R11 revolution in 2011? I think I don't.
No. So the year that I was getting into racing, that's when it all kind of hit the fan. I got the last of it just before the accidents in Piedrahita. So I don't know about the open class and what happened there, but from from my understanding, because I've flown the R11s, the R10s, and from my understanding, it was pilots pushing the gliders beyond what they were, let's say, permitted to do, and that's full speed bar and full trimmers open.
So you mean the user
Where-
manual guidelines were being inherently exploited?
Well, yeah, because I think at that time, if you had full trimmers open, full speed bar, you were getting 80 something kilometers an hour. If the top 10 are pulling away from you because they've got an extra 15, 20 kilometers an hour, you're going to push the trimmers open as well. So I think the fact that the gliders had the ability to do that and the pilots had the ability to take advantage of that is what kind of created that that situation that we had. And unfortunately, the pilots that died did die. But yeah, so I wasn't in that era of racing. It wasn't until the CCC came along, and I was flying for a decade on Bs and Cs, and still performing fairly well against the Ds and the CCCs.
Yeah, no, I love the write-up on your website that you have mentioned so well. But the reason why I asked you this question is that are we looking at a flaw which has been vested in the hierarchical structures of paragliding administration? Or is this more or less a recent development where the centralization of power, the one-man, multiple-role system is this relatively new, or is this something that we have been dealing with but behind closed doors for a while now?
No, it's all been behind closed doors. Like I said earlier, the community is so small and so incestuous that you can't get away from it.
Sorry for laughing in such a serious manner, but incestuous cracks me up.
It's your dad in one organization is your uncle in the other organization. So it's the pure fact that there are people with multiple roles, and not just multiple roles of extreme influence and power. And that's the key, because if you have the ability to overrule pretty much anything, you can direct and steer the organization in whatever way you want.
So long story short, you want to stop incest and bring more interracial, and then flying will be better.
Yeah, absolutely. At least a second cousin.
Yeah.
God damn. Fair enough.
So I think because, like, if we have a look at the organization, it's reached a point of stagnation. Like, what has changed within the organization to bring any new ideas, any new direction, any new approach? It's the same people, same roles, and it's just not moving in the direction that it should be.
There's more social media presence for sure. I'm not going to take that away from them.
Yeah, but we can see the social media stuff on other people's Instagram,
Hey.
Look, it's good for the sport that there is extra media, but it's a double-edged sword. It's good and bad. Where's all the social media about what's happened? You can't castrate the information to suit you.
Oh yeah.
Like if you're posting the good, you should be posting the bad as well.
That is deep. That is deep. Stop. Tilen, when did the official statement come for the accident? And when should it have come? Not out of obligation, but out of humanity.
It was a long time. Like it would have been like 3 or 4 weeks after.
Almost, yeah. So I don't know the exact date, but it was definitely after the pilots have spoken up and basically used social media to tag and to put a spotlight on CIVL to get a response.
Okay.
And then they did, and the way they responded showed me that they have learned nothing, that we're again on the same wheel, going around doing the same stuff, because they just announced some BS solutions of like, they're gonna have an award for the guy who makes most on the safety that will be named after Bram and the hang glider that died, and that's kind of okay. Let's sign it off. Fine, let's continue. So this is really the main issue here. Is they are totally dislocated, living in a parallel universe in a way, because they're in this closed circle, talking in this bubble, just discussing stuff within, and any outside interaction is basically they can they did until now easily dismissed it or silenced it, like they tried to silence Marcela, like they tried to silence other pilots with taking their licenses and so on. It's just you cannot respond like that. You cannot behave like that. This is losing touch with reality.
So you're telling me this is more or less like a mafia tactic kind of a thing, where if you either accept what you're given or stop whining and suck it up.
So I hope Stan will back this up. I've been to quite a lot for the last 12 years on Category 1 events. And on every event, there are protests against decisions of organization or CIVL. I don't remember a single one that would succeed, because every time pilots would complain. And here in Brazil, we had, I think I'm sure it was like close to 20 protests, or at least more than 10.
In one comp?
Yeah. In one comp.
I think there were just like on one day there was like 10 or 12 protests on one day, which I've never seen.
From the elite flyers that we have in the sport, they are questioning.
Yeah, we had, before the accident, we had one day where close to 30 pilots were calling level 3. So for those who don't know what level 3 is, we have like a system where pilots can communicate kind of the conditions. Level 1, all is fine. Level 2, dangerous at some spot, but safe to continue. Level 3, it's not safe to compete. It might be flyable, whatever that means, but not for competition. Mm-hmm. And again, it was because of the really strong wind, and we were flying. We had a turn point directly in the lee side of a bigger mountain. Like the wind was coming over it. So we were all, and this was literally like 30 plus kilometers of wind, and on the ground they were also reporting over 40 gusts and so on, and 30 pilots or more were saying level 3 for like half an hour, and we didn't even get like an acknowledgement for like 15 minutes. It was like, is anyone copying this, right? Anyways, but kind of the problem is this. When you file a complaint or when you try to go against them, it's like you are going against the decision that they've taken, and they themselves are the jury to judge whether you're right or not. Yeah. I mean, it's insane, and because these are like 4 people mixed with different roles, all super connected. So anytime you would protest them, it's either the same guy you're protesting or his buddy there. Yeah. So how can you change anything? How can it, it's literally impossible, and they never did. And that's why I think over the years, they just got the feeling, or, they kind of know the power they have, even though they might not want to be like evil about it, but they just, they know that it's super easy to silence it.
For them, it's the line of least resistance. They've got basically, like, if I was getting the replies for the protests from friends at the competition. So they were sending me their protest and the email that they got replied back. It was literally copy-paste. All they changed was the name of the person that they were sending the email to, and that's it.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So it's not even a discussion or an analysis of what's being protested. It's just, well, I'll just use this copy paste for everything because why not? I can. And if they protest again, we can always black flag them, or we can take their license, or we can ban them, whatever.
Just ignore them.
Or ignore them.
Easily.
Yeah.
I think this is perfectly in line with the dictatorship ideology. You know, that is how you silence voices systematically over a period of time, that people forget what it was to speak out and just become another brick in the wall and accept what is given to them.
Well, I guess you need to have a look at who are the people that have the influence and the power and where they come from.
Fair enough. But so far, out of all the discussions, you know, there are a couple of discussions that I've had with Julian and Paul. I do know that we want to keep this civil because it's niche sport. All of us know each other. We have to bump into each other every morning at the breakfast table in the hotel. But somehow I'm going to go back to your incestuous analogy. If it is the same tiny group of people that are calling the shots repeatedly over a certain period of time, don't you think that we are dealing with a very concentrated group, and it is totally okay to name them because we are not going against a general ideology? We are going against individuals who have gained more than what they can handle when it comes to power structures, and then they are just trying to do it to their best of their abilities, which is a very good intent. I'm not going to lie. I'm not saying that any of the ones who are calling the shots are doing this deliberately. But sometimes, as Julian mentioned in his post, that stepping away is a solution for somebody coming in with a fresh perspective. So aren't we dealing with a selected set of people rather than keeping it anonymous?
Look, that's why I think that what Julian said, that, okay, we basically need to have a resignation. We restructure what we need within the organization, and then we bring people in for those roles.
Yeah.
Because if you've got one person that's basically got 3, 4, 5 hats on across not just one organization, but 2 organizations, like, how are they going to cope? Yeah. So they're just not making the changes that are required because
there's too much workload.
Who knows what reason? Like, only those people will know the reason, whether it's too much workflow, even empathy. Like, some of the calls that I've seen at takeoff, like, there's zero empathy given to a pilot. You know, backwind at takeoff, there's a small pilot with 20 liters of ballast. Well, if they can't take off, it's their problem. Well, yeah, but is it a normal situation to be taking off with a backwind on a takeoff with a sheer cliff?
On a triple C, god damn it, come on.
You know, with ballast, you know, so just the lack of that human element, I think for some people, they've distanced themselves so far away from the pilots and that human element that they're just not making decisions for people. It's like, well, the rule book says this, end of story. Yeah, you want to protest, you can protest, pay your €50. But at the end of the day, I don't really care. You know, so...
Yeah, and the problem is that also because you have concentrated kind of power and no accountability, is that they can either, lean on the rule book and go word by word, or they can totally ignore the rules they have themselves written. And this has happened this year, at the super final, and then also here. So it's just, they're not accountable. They're not consistent even with the rules. And that is why I think it's really important. And I'm glad to see this kind of for the first time. There's also a push. It's, this CIVL resign is not against, and I think this is important. It's not against individuals, right? guys like Goran Dimiškovski, who's the president of PwC and vice president in CIVL, and other guys. It's not against them personally. It's against basically anybody from different organizations having basically multiple roles and kind of this,
I understand.
power. And it's basically how can we define the rules in a way that this can be prevented, and also in a way that things like Stan was mentioning, right, backwind and so on, to leave it to anyone's just interpretation of like what good pilot should do. Like there needs to be work done on basically rules and standards of the organizing an event. When like basically with a different mindset as we do now. We have, of course, there are a lot of rules, but they're not written in a way to ensure safe and high standard competitions. And again, all they were able to do in the last 10 years is just like coming up with some 5-minute solutions for problems that absolutely not critical, like conical end of speed section, double leading points, some ideas of what cloud flying is, but not really, and at the same time, we have developments in our sport that made it more dangerous, right? With like the harnesses and so on. And it's
So if I have to kind of sum up our past 5-10 minutes of views, censorship is the right word. I'm not going to shy away from that. It seems like censoring has been going on, or sweeping it under the carpet. But what kind of makes me sad and kind of angry about this whole reality that you told me is that the lack of empathy, where it is being swept away from the core decision making process, and more than that, the lack of encouragement of interaction, because that is the first step when we want to develop in the right direction, that we encourage dialogue. So correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Is this a little bit of an ego trip and ignorance being combined in the behavioral attitude of authorities, which has caused a cascade of events to lead to this catastrophe that we are staring at?
Possibly, but I don't like personally. I don't know if it's ego. I think it's something different. It's not ego. I can't put my finger on it.
The reason why I said that
I
word
might get back to this point.
is that I'm the boss. I call the shots. This is the rule. You protest. I decide. Paperwork is done. We all go back home.
Yeah, I think it's something even more than ego. Ego is just too easy to say that it's somebody's ego. It's something much deeper than that. And I think that's possibly why it's such a big problem. Because if it was just somebody's ego, you'd have a workaround. But this is something deeper. This is ego mixed with mindset, mixed
Power
with
trip,
I don't
money.
know what. Yeah, money definitely.
Like it has to play a
money
part,
for sure.
Like power trip, ego, money, they all go hand in hand. It's a cohesive development of a human when all three.
Yeah, for sure. Money's definitely a factor. I've never delved into the intricacies of where the money goes, but the amounts that sometimes you hear about, especially for a Worlds event, I'm pretty sure you could hire a private ambulance service with rescue teams for takeoff below the hill and 20 landings in between the takeoff and the official landing. So I think we need to find out where that money is going, because it's not into the quality of healthcare for the pilots or the rescue teams. Like if we have a look at Castello 2 years earlier, there was another fatality there. It took I think it was 16 hours or 18 hours to basically get the body off the hill. And the next day we were flying over the body while it was still on the hill.
Oh my God. No.
Oh, wow.
So
no way, man.
And there's been calls where I mentioned this during the after the task because we didn't know what had happened. We were all flying, and there was a pilot that crashed, and we had a task where we were basically waiting for the start above the pilot. Then we'd fly across the valley to the north in Castello, and then we'd come directly back over where the body was. And we didn't know as pilots that there was a helicopter on the way. And when I mentioned it in the afternoon, I'm like, look, we've got 135, 140 pilots circling over a body. You've got a helicopter incoming. We're flying away from this place at altitude, and then we're all going to be coming back super low, scratching. So we've got a helicopter on the way. We've got pilots coming back super low. We've got potential for another accident because it's going to be 140 pilots again in that same spot. Where's the safety in that? Oh, the reply that I got is, well, we timed it that the helicopter was going to get there about the right time. So it's for me, that was a given that task should have been stopped.
Yeah.
All the pilots fly away, and then the rescue can go on. And then when the rescue did come, they couldn't even get to the body from the helicopter because they didn't have a long enough line.
I'm fucking angry, man. And I hate being in this vibe as a host of a show which is speaking to an audience, but fuck my life. Have we desensitized ourselves to something as gory and grave as death, that there is a human pilot lying lifelessly for more than 12 hours, and we are going out and looking for the core and wanting to push full bar and still chase glory which nobody gives a single flying fuck about? Are you kidding me? Is that the reality that we all look forward to? That's a shame of a century, my man. What the fuck?
At the end of the day, everyone's taken a holiday. Everyone's there to race. Whenever we've got a big accident, oh yeah, we have a day trip to somewhere. Like in Turkey, they had a day trip to Cappadocia. As for I don't know, for reflection that a pilot has died. You go for a day trip. So I don't know. For me, it's become very distasteful in how we as pilots are treated and what happens after there is an accident.
Yeah. And I think what's important to highlight is maybe this is not the standard. I think in normal venues, when a helicopter is on the way, stuff are stopped and so on. But that's not any excuse. It's still the minimum of the minimum standard of what we are doing should be at that level that safety comes really is essential. And what I see, how I interpret this kind of stuff, or why this happens every few years or something, what's kind of is that there's a lot of close calls that are not discussed, that are not processed, that are not thought about. When there's a close call, everybody in 5 minutes forgets it and it's fine. And then from the organizational point of view and all those, they tend to make the same the same mistakes over and over again. And even though there is a small chance of like this kind of stuff happening, eventually it does happen because there's no change. There's no, we just kind of collectively ignore and go on because it's hard. It's hard to think about. It's hard to make some difficult choices, it's easier to just pretend and just to deal with other stuff, some technical, whatever, BS rules that for fairness that nobody gives a damn, and you see the kind of the disconnect between kind of what's at the heart of the kind of the issue and what they're trying, or everybody's now, even the communities thinking. And like my take on, I mean, maybe this is steering a bit off course, but like, with the equalizers, it's they're saying they're solving like safety wise, or like that lighter pilots, shouldn't take so much ballast and so on. So let's put equalizers on everyone.
And they'll still have ballast.
Exactly. And then I ask basically the FII there, or the CIVL. It's like sure. So you're telling me that all the small pilots here that need to carry 40 kilo, they have 1-to-1 ratio almost, because they can barely fit to the extra small. So you're saying me that equalizers are solving their ballast problem, so
and for with the equalizers, like I'm a big boy. Yeah, I just fit on an extra large. Like I've got a liter of drinking water. That's my ballast. So where's my equalizer for not being able to turn as tight as a smaller glider in a thermal?
And
it's like it's how, where do you draw the line on what you're going to equalize and what you're not going to equalize?
And again, kind of the real problem is, we have competitors with like extreme ballast, with really a lot, where it really makes a huge difference when you crash. We're not saying if Stan has 1 liter, because that's technically ballast. He's a big boy, he can carry that 1 liter. But if you have a person with 50 kilos and 30 kilos of gear, that's the real problem. And the equalizers don't change that. So, there's again, you see kind of the disconnect between kind of the solution that's there, which has no impact on the critical parts. Okay, sorry a bit for the off topic, but it's just one.
No, but I think it's part of it as well, because even when we have a look at like how much money in I think PwC has been spent on adapting the scoring system. Like if we devoted that, even half the money for better medical at takeoff or at landing, like that's a benefit that I can justify spending that money on. Whether I'm getting scored at 0.03 more at the end of a task, I don't care. Like if everyone's on the same scoring, it's all fair anyway.
Talking about money, I want to clarify this, because a lot of people say nobody is in our sport to make money. Everybody's in it for passion, but for fuck's sake, nobody's doing it for free as well, right? Don't have that precedent. And just to give our listeners a perspective, and I'm sorry if I'm a bit triggered right now, but this is a brand new reality of racing that I never knew existed, because I have idolized and fantasized about pushing full bar in the lead thermal since the day I picked up my wing. And I never knew that we have desensitized the field up to a point where we're missing the whole point of that we fly for the joy of it, not for the bragging over like past whatever, right? Anyways, everybody gets what I'm saying. So the question about money, 350 euros, that's the entry fee, right? Usually, ballpark. Bring in 130 pilots. That's a minimum. That's close to 45,000 euros.
Like, I've worked closely with organizers of competitions, so I know that there's things where the money goes very quickly, because, for example, some sites, $5,000 to run a comp. Like you have to pay the fee. So it's I'm not gonna kind of deny that there are the costs that you'll never find out about. You might have to put $5,000 to have an ambulance at takeoff and at landing, another $5,000 for something else. So the money does go fairly quickly, but is it going in the right direction? That's the question that we need to be asking. Where are our membership fees going? Where are our entry fees going? Like, what am I getting? Because even if I win an event, I get my WPRS points. I get in Turkey, it was actually a pretty good medal, so I won't deny it. And the trophies were pretty nice and made out of glass. So it wasn't just €5 worth of trophies, but normally it's a €5 trophy. So, we need to have a look at, are we getting something that's worth our money? Because if we're paying that €350, or if you go to the Worlds, it's 500 plus. Am I getting the level of safety, the level of medical care, the level of rescue services that I'm paying for? And most of the time, the answer is no. Like the only competition where I went to that was a big competition was the Worlds 2 years ago in France. And that was pretty much the only time I've ever felt that if I crash, within 15 minutes, I've got a helicopter above me. Pretty much guaranteed. And I'll get taken care of. That's the only time. Everything else, it's like, okay, we go to Turkey. I can guarantee they're not paying 5, 6, 10 grand for ambulances in Turkey. It's going to be 20%. Yeah. So why are we not getting the quality that we should require as a minimum?
And it's funny because the business model, how I see it, or basically the other question, why people go to competitions? Okay, part of it is kind of competitive, like going there to win WLS points and so on. But out of 130, I think majority, or why like deep down you go to competition, is you go for a week on a holiday somewhere to a new place. Everything's organized, so you pay the entry fee. You have all the kind of transport. Somebody's taking care of you. Somebody's looking at the weather. Somebody, like, if you crash, at least that's what we think, somebody will take care of you. So you have this kind of, somebody's watching over you for that week that you're flying there. So for most people, the competition, okay, and the fourth part is really kind of the community. You go there because you see friends, you have...
And there's a fifth. Like, some people purely go to competitions to get away from their wives.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. But in a way, we go for competitions to go on an organized flying trip, let's say.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, it's, I guess, at the moment, your money is better spent if you go to touring or some guiding trips where you have really a guy that's not just saying really taking care of you, basically, even visually, right? So react. So that's part of the problem also, because the organizers know this, and their business model is 100-something people times entry fee. That's my budget. I don't ask for any basically budget out elsewhere, because I don't really need to, because that's enough to get the vans, to get the fees, and to have something left over. And whether you provide more to the pilots or less, basically at the moment nobody cares, right? I mean, it's not a really hot selling spot if you say, okay, helicopter is in 15 minutes or helicopter needs 45 minutes. Probably the other one will still be sold out at the moment. So I guess part of the blame it's also on us, on pilots, that we are just not basically considering these facts. I can say for myself, things have changed in Brazil. Even the day after, I had a very different approach to risk management. So, during the World Championships after Bram's accident, I have taken multiple decisions. I saw where it was going, where we were flying into the strong wind, and I said, okay, I tap out. I'm gonna land here safely. I don't care about the result anymore. So,
guys, this is such interesting, sad, curious. I'm going through all sorts of emotions, but I don't want this episode to turn into a rant of some sorts, especially for the sake of our listeners who are tuning in for some sorts of solutions, and I hope to look forward to pushing full bar and chasing the joy that comes with it. So let's switch to the way forward. Stan, you and I think Tilen, this goes for you as well. You guys have been in the game for a fair bit. What is the way forward here that makes us stick to the fact that never again is never again?
I think we need to have a spring cleaning. We need to clean house. We need to then agree among the pilots or with the organizations what rules, regulations, roles are required moving forward. And there has to be an element of pilot input into the decisions and the direction that we're moving into, because at the moment, with your civil delegate, you can give him whatever ideas you want, but unless he agrees with them and puts them forward, they never get heard. So, even if they introduce a voting system, every civil member or fine member gets an email to a poll. What do you think on this subject? And we do it in that way rather than how it is at the moment, because at the moment it's, to put it bluntly, it's almost a dictatorship.
That's what I said. Just like mafia vibes all along. If you speak against me, I'm going to silence you. If you go on.
Yeah, like for me, the way that pilots are silenced, and it's, to put it politely, it's just distasteful. I won't use other language.
Fair enough. Thank you for the censorship, self-censorship.
But I don't think how it is at the moment has a future. I'm more than happy, like I mentioned earlier, I'm more than happy to boycott. I don't pay my fire license. I don't pay my PwC membership until things change for the better. Because at the end of the day, I've got a family. I want to go back to them. I'm not going to risk flying in questionable conditions. And let's be honest, in Brazil, it wasn't questionable. They knew it was
outright
coming. And the fact that, there's been comments that I've heard that, 100 other pilots landed there. And it's like, well, yeah, 100 pilots survived landing there, but what was their enjoyment level? Trying to land there and fly in those conditions. Like, even from the videos we have a look at, there's collapses above landing. There's pilots flying backwards, trying to come into land. So, for anyone that kind of says, well, 100 other pilots managed to land there, yeah, sure. 1,000 planes land at an airport. There's still a chance that one doesn't. How can we limit the percentage or the frequency of conditions where that's even possible? Because it was completely avoidable. We have to put it bluntly. The accident in Brazil was completely avoidable. And like Tilen said, it started months earlier with the decision to change venue.
More than
Yeah,
that, I'm not gonna
and-
like. I'll come back to you, Tillian. But more than that, the hit back on raising a voice is what concerns me. It's like, okay, I can make a mistake because I'm a human, so I'm not going to take away the fact that organizers are humans as well, and we got to cut them some slack. But when it comes to the point that, hey, I am having an opinion that you are on the wrong track and you tell me to shut the fuck up, that is the easiest blunt way to put it, because somebody is not home because of some decisions that you made. So censoring that part is what is making me angry. But Tillian, yeah, go on. You were saying something before I rant again about this.
no. No, I just actually forgot what I was trying to add to Stan's comment.
Sorry if I was a bit overhyped there.
It's fine. But basically, your point was what do we need to go forward, or how we would like to proceed forward. And I mentioned basically that I feel completely disconnected to kind of CIVL and what they're doing, even though I'm really involved into paragliding and competing and have been for many years. But I feel utterly hopeless at them basically providing any solutions that I would see a better future. So the way forward, what I really wish for is basically having an organization or commission that takes pilot input, that recognizes difficult, hard questions, hard problems, and they have a vision. All things won't be solvable within like a single whatever legislation or whatever. Maybe even working on a pilot culture is something it will take years, but you need, in order to achieve it, you need a vision, you need a plan how to do it. None of these things is happening. They are ignorant to everything, and when you confront them, the only thing they are concerned about is basically their image and basically admitting they were wrong, kind of like, and that's why they attack people. And the story I already shared, it's like in Macedonia in 2019, we had all this dispute for Gambit and so on, right? Which I won't go into too much detail, but they brought me in front of like
the perspective of listeners who don't know what Tilen is saying. Spectra and Gambit were two brand new toys on the market which promised field dominance, and there were some pilots who put their trust in them, but they were denied racing pertaining to some technical rules that were activated or engaged from the ones who were calling the shots. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, exactly. And the way they were with like this team leader voting about the technical part is just totally illogical. But nevertheless, so after that, because I was one of the pilots, registering there with the Gambit, and then I was denied. Luckily, I had an Enzo with me, so I could still fly.
But you also have to mention this was the day before the actual competition was meant to start. It's not months before that you had time to prepare. You show up to a competition and they go, "Meh, you can't fly your glider."
Yeah, not even them. They kind of had a vote of on a technical, like either you comply with or not, and then they were just used kind of the team leader vote. Anyway, bizarre, totally. But I had a chance basically to go one-on-one off the record, of course, with them, and they kind of, at that time the president was Stéphane Malbos from France, and he asked me like, what do you want to see kind of in future, or how would you want us to direction and so on. And I was saying like, okay, first of all, I want like more transparency. I want basically more accountability and more predictability, because this was part of this was the core of the issue. I went there, everything was green, and then the day before they said, no, you cannot compete, even though it went like through multiple rounds of whether this is legal or not. So I said that, okay, goodbye. The next plenary, I went on social media to rant about their decision, of course, because I was pissed off. Who wouldn't? And the outcome of that was that the next plenary, they voted that if you rant against them on social media, you can be disqualified for unsportive behavior. That's the only thing it changed from the whole mess. And it shows kind of where the focus lies. It was never about solving a problem or improving. It was just how can we prevent from people giving this hard time. And this is still the same today.
And we've seen it with Marcela. Like,
we've seen it with Marcela.
You speak up and you get absolutely destroyed.
Stan,
Totally.
quickly for those audiences, listeners who are curious, elaborate on Marcela. And also, while this topic is going on, I would encourage the listeners and viewers to drop in a comment about your perspective on censoring personal opinions on personal social media handles, because I think the way digital work works is that we all have our own platform. As long as it is not hate speech targeted at a certain sect or a person, and if it is expressed in a civil manner, I don't see any reason for reprimand. Because if it is, then that is exact definition of dictatorship, where it's like you say something against the organization and I will make sure you pay the price for it. And I do understand that I am diluting my position as a podcast host or as somebody who will look forward to collaborating with well-known names. And this is my message to those people who want to stand on the side of truth, that I do promise that no matter how hard it be, and no matter what monetary losses it be, I will make sure that Paragliding Atlas brings to you undistorted, unfiltered truth at all times. And I will stand by it. But yeah, Stan, back to you.
Yeah, so the situation was that I don't know the exact details of why there was a discussion about changing location, because the Worlds was meant to be in Andradas, which is a superior place to fly, especially in that time of year. Not to mention with even the healthcare, because the organizer there was hiring a private ambulance service that was going to be working at the Worlds. But Marcela pointed to all these things in an email that she sent to CIVL, stating that time of year in Castello will be carnage. It's windy, it's not the right season, it's all the bad factors. And basically the fallback of this was that, well, if you've got a problem and you continue having a problem, then you're basically going to get banned. And then from memory, one of the other Brazilian pilots basically boycotted the Worlds. He had a spot, he was qualified, he was all paid up, and he boycotted just because it's not the direction that the sport should be going in.
Wise words, Stan. Wise words. Guys, I would like to close this without, having this topic go super long, because I want to keep it to the point. What responsibility do the audience members listening to us carry, and how can they do their own bit in ensuring that all of us are a part of the system that is fair, just, civil, and most importantly, safe?
Speak up. Make your wants heard. Do you just want to go on a holiday, or do you want to go on a safe flying trip? Okay, there might be a day or two that you don't fly, but you'll make it home. Talk to your civil delegate. And if you don't like the direction that something's going in, take some kind of action, because you still paying your civil fees, you still going to a competition, you're just feeding the system that you're not agreeing with.
Wow. Usually, guys, I have this, what do you say, a tradition, and that was more or less for site guides or when I have a guest who speaks about their one memorable flight from their life. I think the subscribers who have been with me since the beginning of this journey back in 2023, they can recall a lot of amazing flights being told. But I want to tweak that part over here and come back to the point of censorship. And this one goes out to you, Tilen. Before I close, I do recall faintly that there was a time when pilots were reprimanded for liking something on social media, for heaven's sake. What the actual happened?
Yeah. So, so the story before Macedonia, and then the gambit and the plenary and unsportive behavior because of social media. So the year
is
later,
it same people in power throughout this whole timeline, or more or less kind of?
More or less,
Wow.
yeah. But yeah, the next year the Worlds were supposed to be in France. They were not because of COVID, because of lockdown. So they went to Argentina, which was, by the way, again a last minute change. Okay, it was COVID and everything, but again, I have to say, like, the way, what bothers me here, and I want to put it out, is the way these world championships are selected is not random. The organizers need to make basically a project or a proposal. They need to be voted on. They need to make a test event. There are a lot of processes that they go through in order to comply that they are capable of making. And the CIVL still, at that time, okay, it was Corona, but they were just like, let's go to Argentina because there's no restrictions, which at that time I didn't go because I felt this is dumb. And this time, so they will do everything possible in order not to cancel one, which it's not the end of the world. Anyways, so it was in Argentina. It was some stupid stuff about I think the French team bombed out, and then they were saying level 3, and there was a meme about like how they are concerned because the submarine just came out, and how they were concerned that it will not sell, so they need to if they don't win with submarine, they need to cancel. Whatever, doesn't matter. And then pilots like that meme on the pilots
basically
group.
Somebody clicked like or double tapped on history. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, double tap. And then I don't know for others, but I know a friend of mine, he got an official warning from the FIE jury or steward, I think steward at that time, for unsportive behavior because he liked a meme on a pilot's chat for a joke. It's just
I love this that you pointed it out with full honesty. And this is a message which goes to organizers, and I'll try and be to the point here, guys. Fine, you have a rule which says do not like a meme on social media because it is unsportive behavior. All I would say is please stand in front of a mirror and look what you have done. Would you classify that as unsportive behavior? And if yes, then look harder and see if it is actually time to go and if it is actually time for a change. Because unsportive behavior can be very conveniently defined depending upon which side of the jury you are.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to touch on, I just noticed the post, I think, last night or this morning from Faye about the safety stand down, which isn't really a big stand down because I don't think there's any real Cat 1 events during winter, is there?
Pan American in March.
Yeah, but from the wording, it's like a stand down until the Pan American.
Yeah, anyways.
So what are they actually standing down from? So for me, I think even just that approach, that, okay, well, we're posting that we're standing down just to improve our optics. we're not actually standing down from anything. What's actually going to change until the Pan American? Shouldn't they stand down from all events until they've implemented the changes?
Fuck yeah. Easy choice. That's like what 777 was messing up in the commercial world. They grounded the whole freaking fleet. This is a very normal behavior in aviation, and if commercial guys can go out and chase it in a more safer manner, then we should at least have the intent to learn rather than the intent to cover up. That's what I'm saying.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Be transparent. Also the guys at the CIVL are human. I truly believe the kind of intentions they have are for the best, in their own vision and so on. But come on, be transparent. Take responsibility when you need it. Just like we talk about like accident and safety, and we all know here. I mean, I know it's cliche to say, it is a dangerous sport. Accidents, unfortunately, will happen. What I would like to see in an accident like it was now is that aftermath was like, okay, accident happened. Everything was done as good as it was possible at that time. All basically we had all the safety nets, or most of the safety nets, in place in order for that to not happen. It still happened. Let's analyze what we can do more. And at pilots, we kind of have that feeling of like, okay, actually, yeah, the guy crashed, had serious consequences or died. But like there was not like things that went horribly wrong before or after in terms of like procedures and so on that lead to that, right? That we can say kind of that we can be, I don't know how to say this, not satisfied, but view it in that point like, the safety nets were there. It still happened because there is a small chance it can still happen. Whereas now we're like, we were warned, we were pointing out, we were vocal about it, we were trying to like, and still nothing happened. And then the accident happened with the outcome it did. And still after, nothing. And now finally, I mean, we're kind of in a discussion to change things. Although from my point of view, it's still deja vu basically from the CIVL.
It's business as usual.
Yeah.
Like,
and
any competition, there's been an accident. It's the pilot's fault. Next task, we go fly. There's no accountability. There's no analysis of what went wrong, what could have been done better. And like Tilen was just mentioning, like if you had the correct framework and all the processes and something failed, okay, I understand. But now at the Worlds, they didn't have the framework. They didn't have the correct processes. So when something did go wrong, there has to be some level of accountability. And at the moment, it's, well, we'll shrug it off and we keep going. So, yeah, that's one thing that we need to change.
Guys, this has been insightful 90 minutes for me so far, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people watching and listening to this can relate to it as well. And I kind of want to leave it at that without digging further deep into and washing the dirty linen in public, because I think we have done that enough to bring out the facts. And I would rather invite the audiences to present their opinion. And I'm not saying this to gain traction or views or something. I've been doing this show even when there were like 20 people listening to me 2 years ago. So I do this because I love this. So I'm not inviting you to start commenting because I want more. It would be amazing if we can have this reached out to more people, but I want to know the opinion of general public out there when all of this is being happening. And I'm pretty sure we have not distorted the facts, or we have not twisted, because we are not sponsored by anyone yet. I hope that changes.
But you do know we just finished a conversation about people being being singled out for liking posts. I don't know about the comments.
Well, fair enough. There's a possibility to do anonymous commenting as well, or make a freaking new, whatever. Anyway, everybody gets the point. But yeah,
for sure.
Let's all do our own bit to make sure that every time we take to the skies, it's not just safe for us, but also safe for the ones waiting behind. I think I would like to leave it at that.
Yep.
Great.
Thank you, gents. It's been an absolute honor. Can't wait for
very welcome.
One.
Welcome.
Yeah, I hope next time we get to talk about more positive things. I feel this episode has been actually so kind of hard and honest. I would just like to remind people that paragliding is still a beautiful sport. That's why we do it. And I look forward to discussions about that at some point.
Yeah, Stan, if we go from incest to interracial,
sure.
we'll definitely have better stories. I promise.
Absolutely. We'll have prettier babies.
Better genes, better decision-making skills. All right, guys. Thanks for now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.